The penthouse sat high above Manhattan, wrapped in early morning fog. Below, taxis honked like impatient geese, and Wall Street men in suits marched toward their purpose. But up here, the air was still. Jasmine Walker sat at her kitchen island in a faded Alabama state hoodie, watching the steam rise from her untouched coffee. Her phone buzzed. She didn't look at it. Instead, her eyes found the envelope in front of her, her boarding pass. LaGuardia to San Francisco, seat 14A, Economy Plus. She smiled faintly. It had been years since she'd seen that side of the plane. The screen of her phone lit up again. Zoe, assistant, third missed call. Jasmine reached over, tapped to answer on speaker. Jazz. You seriously going through with this? Jasmine chuckled softly. Morning to you too. I booked you a Gulfstream. You want me to cancel it for real? I already did. Girl, are you having a crisis? Is this like a billionaire breakdown moment? You're voluntarily flying commercial. Jasmine stood up, walking toward the full-length mirror in the hallway. She looked at herself, the hoodie, the jeans, the old Converse sneakers. You remember what my grandma used to say, she asked. There was a pause on the line. Which one? She said a lot of things. The one about not letting them tell you where you belong. Zoe sighed. You know what this world sees when you step on that plane looking like that? I know exactly what they see. The Uber driver barely looked at her as she loaded her own bag into the trunk. The ride to the airport was quiet, save for a soft Luther Vandross playing on the radio. Jasmine didn't speak unless spoken to. She liked it that way. At LaGuardia, she joined the slow-moving line for TSA pre-check. No one noticed her. That was the goal. As she slipped her laptop into the tray and tugged her hoodie tighter, a TSA agent gave her a second glance, but said nothing. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Zoe. Still time to turn around. I'll have the jet warmed up in 10. Jasmine just smiled and slipped the phone into her back pocket. She hadn't flown commercial since... She couldn't even remember. Back when she was pitching her first startup, maybe, sleeping in airports, living on vending machine dinners. That part of her felt like another lifetime. But she never forgot it. Mechanicsville never let her forget. Her mind drifted to her grandmother's tiny kitchen, the smell of cornbread and cast iron lingering in the air. Grandma Pearl with her apron and her stories and her steel spine. You ain't better than nobody, she used to say, but don't let 'em treat you like you less neither. That woman raised her on wisdom and fried okra. Boarding was still an hour away, so Jasmine sat in a corner near Gate 37 hoodie, up earbuds and pretending to scroll her phone while she watched the world move around her. A white man in a crisp navy suit snapped his fingers at the gate agent like she was a server. A black woman with 2 toddlers struggled with her stroller while no one offered help. A Latino janitor wiped down a row of chairs like he was invisible. The hierarchy wasn't subtle. It never had been. Final boarding call for Flight 422 to San Francisco. The intercom buzzed. Jasmine grabbed her worn duffel and stood. She moved with the group marked Group 3, keeping her head down. As she walked the jet bridge, she felt a flutter of nerves. Not fear, just anticipation. She wasn't here to cause trouble. She was here to watch, to feel, to remember what it was like to be unseen. She found her seat, 14A window side. A man already sat in the aisle seat, scrolling something on his iPad, sipping Starbucks like he owned the world. He didn't even glance up as she slid into her spot. Good. She stared out the window at the tarmac. Planes came and went. People loaded and unloaded. The sky was starting to clear. And just as she exhaled, feeling the comfort of anonymity settle around her like a soft blanket, she heard it. A familiar voice behind her, loud, entitled, laughing at something unfunny. She didn't turn around. Not yet. Her phone buzzed once more. Zoe again. Last chance. I'm sending a car now. Just say the word. Jasmine stared at the message. Then slowly she locked the screen, tucked it away, and leaned back into her seat. The woman next to her adjusted her sunglasses and whispered, They don't know who you are, do they? Jasmine smiled without looking. They don't need to. She watched a family across from her white dad, Asian mom, and a sleepy toddler with curly hair. The dad was on his laptop, the mom balancing snacks, toys, and a baby bottle with one hand. Jasmine smiled. The woman was doing the real multitasking. A few rows down, a young black man in a delivery uniform sat nervously fidgeting with a boarding pass. His knees bounced. First flight, maybe. Or maybe flying to see someone sick. Jasmine recognized that anxious energy. She lived it once. She remembered being 16 holding a borrowed suitcase, a paper boarding pass, and $10 in her sock. Grandma Pearl had hugged her tight at the Atlanta airport, whispering, "Don't lose yourself trying to fit in, baby. Let 'em adjust." She took out her phone and opened her notes app. The title read, Wingspan Service Audit, Confidential. She had bullet points ready categories like boarding treatment, staff tone, seat, condition, racial dynamics, and general respect. This wasn't a vacation. This was research. Jasmine had invested over $40 million in Wingspan's last Series F round. She wanted to believe in the company, but numbers didn't tell the whole story. Experience did. Zoe didn't understand that. None of her board did. They just saw graphs and valuations. Jasmine saw people. An older white man sat down next to her briefly before realizing he had the wrong gate. He didn't apologize, just scowled like she'd taken his spot in the world by existing. She wrote in her notes, subtle acts of displacement routine, expected. Time passed slowly in that fluorescent-lit terminal. Jasmine sipped water from her reusable bottle, quietly watching a Wingspan employee assist a white couple with carry-on issues, offering solutions and a warm smile. 10 minutes later, a black woman with a thick Haitian accent asked a similar question. The same employee replied curtly, "You need to figure that out before boarding." Jasmine's jaw tightened. She jotted again, tone policing, service variance by accent and skin tone. She scrolled through Twitter briefly, hearting a few posts from a literacy nonprofit she funded in Baltimore. A small news alert popped up, Wingspan Airlines stock dips 0.4% ahead of tech investor event in San Francisco. She almost laughed. They didn't know the tech investor was already in the building and sitting in economy. A soft chime played overhead. Boarding would begin soon. Jasmine glanced down at her boarding pass again. Group 3, middle tier. She wondered how many of the executives she funded had ever flown anything less than first class. Hell, even her ex-boyfriend couldn't handle valet taking too long at a restaurant. The man had once pouted when a maitre d' didn't recognize him at Nobu. She'd broken up with him over dessert. As the terminal buzzed with activity, Jasmine leaned her head back, eyes closed, listening. Children whining, sneakers squeaking, the rhythmic voice of the intercom calling names and cities. This was the sound of real life. Not penthouse brunches, not yacht galas, not tech panels, just life. The kind her grandma knew, the kind she came from, the kind she refused to forget. Her phone buzzed once more. Not Zoe this time. It was her godbrother, Malik. "Malik, heard you flying coach. You good, sis?" She smiled and typed back, "Jasmine. Exactly where I need to be." As boarding began, Group 1 was called. People leapt to their feet like it was a race. Jasmine stayed seated unbothered. Let them rush. She wasn't here to win a seat. She was here to win a perspective. Group 3 finally lit up on the screen. Jasmine stood, slung her duffel over her shoulder, and moved with the line. She passed a little black girl holding her mom's hand. The girl smiled at Jasmine's sneakers, bright red, Converse with hand-drawn flowers along the side. "Your shoes are cool," the girl whispered. Jasmine leaned down slightly. "So are yours." The girl beamed. Her mom mouthed, "Thank you." Jasmine gave a small nod. As she stepped into the jet bridge, a flight attendant greeted the man in front of her with a cheerful, "Welcome aboard, Mr. Winston." When Jasmine stepped up, the same attendant offered a neutral boarding pass. She handed it over with a calm smile. The attendant scanned it, barely glancing up. 14A. Left side. No eye contact. No warmth. Noted. Inside the plane, she walked past rows of seats. First class smelled of citrus and power. Business class reeked of espresso and overconfidence. Economy Plus was just regular. And that's where she landed 14A, window seat, just like she requested. She slid in, pulled her hoodie back slightly, and looked out. Not at the view, but at the reflection. A black woman in her 30s, rich beyond imagination, and right now, invisible. exactly as planned. The waiting area at Gate 37 looked like every other airport gate in America, cold seats, high ceilings, and people pretending not to watch each other. Jasmine settled into the corner farthest from the main boarding doors. From here, she had the perfect view, not just of the gate, but of the people. And watching people was exactly what she came here for. She pulled out a granola bar from her bag, unwrapped it slowly, and bit off a corner. Dry, a little stale. Perfect. A family approached the gate agent. White dad, white mom, 2 loud sunburned children swinging cheap souvenirs from Times Square. The dad smiled widely, leaned over the counter like he knew the woman behind it. "Hey there, darlin'. Think you can get us into Group 1? My wife's got a knee thing." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. The gate agent, a black woman in her 40s, offered a polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "If it's not listed on your boarding pass, sir, I'm afraid I can't." "Come on," he interrupted. "We're platinum. You don't want me tweeting the CEO, do you?" There it was. The threat masked as charm. The gate agent blinked, then typed something. "I've upgraded you to Group 2. The man gave her a wink like they shared a secret. "That's what I'm talking about." Jasmine jotted a note in her phone. "Entitlement rewarded. Deference expected." She looked around. A janitor, a short Latino man with graying hair, was wiping down seats across from her. People shifted to avoid him, annoyed at the scent of disinfectant. No one thanked him. She watched a teenage girl spill half her frappuccino and walk away like it wasn't her problem. The janitor sighed and cleaned it up in silence. Jasmine caught his eye and gave a small nod. He returned it. No words, just respect. Then she saw him. He strode into the gate area like he owned it. Designer blazer over a white tee, expensive sneakers that had never touched dirt, and a smirk that seemed permanent. Jimmy Kimmel. She knew the type. Loud, charming in a performative way, and deeply unaware of his effect on a room, or worse, very aware, and using it like a weapon. He cut in front of an elderly woman at the customer service line, giving her a mock smile. "Don't worry, I'll be quick." The woman didn't respond. Jasmine watched as Jimmy leaned over the counter, laughing loudly at something the gate agent didn't find funny. Then, without being told, he pulled a VIP tag from his wallet and slapped it on the counter like a poker chip. "Just checking I'm still in 14A. Left side window." "Yeah." The agent confirmed it. Jasmine's stomach twisted. 14A. Her seat. She stood, slowly walked to the gate agent and waited until the line cleared. "Hi," Jasmine said quietly. "I think there's been a mix-up. I'm also in 14A. The agent blinked. "Really?" "Yes," Jasmine replied, showing her boarding pass. "Economy Plus. Booked 2 weeks ago." The woman clicked her keyboard, frowning. "Strange. There's only one 14A on this flight. It's been manually assigned to a Jimmy Kimmel this morning." "Is there a problem?" Jimmy's voice interrupted. He was behind them now, phone in hand, smirking. "Sir, she appears to have the same seat number." Jimmy looked Jasmine up and down. Then he chuckled. "Oh, I get it." He turned to the gate agent. "Look, I'm sure she's a nice lady and all, but I was upgraded. Platinum with Wingspan for 8 years. I always get a window." He smiled at Jasmine. "Maybe they can put you in the middle seat next to mine." "I don't bite." Jasmine's jaw tightened. The gate agent shifted uncomfortably. "Let me check with the cabin crew. Please wait here." Back in her seat near the corner, Jasmine exhaled. Jimmy had walked off again, phone glued to his hand, laughing at memes or stocks or whatever privileged people did when they had too much time and not enough self-awareness. The overhead speakers crackled. "Attention passengers. Flight 422 to San Francisco is now boarding Group 1. The usual crowd surged forward, suits, heels, Rolexes." Jasmine waited. When Group 3 was called, she stepped forward with the rest of the ignored and the overlooked. As she boarded Cheryl Dawson, a Wingspan flight attendant greeted her. Cheryl looked Jasmine up and down, scanned her boarding pass, and gave a strained smile. 14. "Okay." There was a pause. Then Cheryl leaned over to another flight attendant and whispered, "We might need to move her." Jasmine heard it. So did the man behind her. He blinked, looked at Jasmine, and then quickly looked away. She said nothing. She walked to her seat. And there it was, Jimmy Kimmel already sitting in 14A earbuds in legs spread wide like the row belonged to him. "Excuse me," Jasmine said calmly. Jimmy looked up annoyed. "I believe that's my seat." He raised an eyebrow, pulled out one earbud. "This again!" He turned toward Cheryl, who was approaching quickly. "Oh, hey, Cheryl. Great to see you." He grinned. "Can we just clear this up? Pretty sure this whole mix-up's already been handled." Cheryl looked at Jasmine. "Ma'am, would you mind stepping aside so we can verify the seat assignment?" Jasmine didn't move. She held out her boarding pass. 14A. I'm not stepping aside. I'm stepping in. Passengers were now slowing down, sensing the tension. Phones were subtly raised. One or two people started recording. David Torres, the lead flight attendant, appeared from the galley. "What's the issue?" Cheryl leaned in, whispering something. David turned to Jasmine. "Ma'am, we'd like to offer you a complimentary drink and seat in the back row to resolve this." Jasmine blinked. The back row, David offered a tight smile. "Just for this flight. We'll make a note for future bookings." "No," Jasmine said. Jimmy sighed dramatically. "Oh, come on, this is ridiculous." Jasmine turned to him. "What's ridiculous is assuming I don't belong in the seat I paid for." He laughed short, dismissive. "You seriously going to make this a thing over a seat?" Cheryl was pulling out a printed manifest. David scratched the back of his neck, and all the while phones kept filming. Jasmine could see a woman a few rows back, black mid-40s, watching closely. Her camera phone steady, her eyes fierce. Vanessa Green. Jasmine didn't know her yet, but she would, very soon. Jasmine took a breath. This wasn't about a seat. This was about every seat someone like her was told she didn't deserve. She straightened her back. "My name is Jasmine Walker," she said, voice clear and calm, "and I'm not moving." Silence settled over the cabin, thick as humidity before a southern storm. David Torres glanced between Jasmine and Jimmy, then at the slowly growing crowd of phones. He could feel the pressure mounting, not just from the passengers, but from the voice inside his own conscience. Jasmine stood her ground. She wasn't loud, she wasn't angry, she was simply firm. That made her presence even more disruptive to the system built to ignore people like her. "Let me be clear," she said, turning to Cheryl now. "If you have evidence that I wasn't assigned this seat, show it. Otherwise, I am sitting here, and he—" she motioned toward Jimmy, "is the one in the wrong seat." David looked down at the manifest again. It showed Jimmy's name in 14A, but something about the way it had been entered felt off. He checked the timestamp. Manually reassigned at 5:47 a.m., less than 2 hours ago. Quietly, he asked Cheryl, "Who did this override?" Cheryl shifted, uncomfortable. "It came from Gate." "I didn't ask." "You didn't ask," David repeated, his voice flat. Cheryl avoided eye contact. A buzz moved through the cabin as people began to whisper. Jasmine remained still. Jimmy, growing more agitated, stood now, too, towering half a foot over her. "Look," he huffed, "you made your point. But this is all just theater now." Jasmine tilted her head. "Funny. I was thinking the same thing." His smirk faded. Vanessa Green, the woman filming, spoke up. "She has every right to sit there," she said, voice steady. "You're just upset a black woman told you no." A ripple of agreement moved through the rows. A few people nodded. Someone even clapped briefly. Jimmy turned, red eyes darting toward the cameras, suddenly aware that he was no longer in control of the narrative. David took a deep breath, stepped forward, and nodded at Jasmine. "Ma'am, please take your seat. We'll handle Mr. Kimmel." Jimmy looked shocked. "What?" David turned to him. "We'll find you another seat. Or rebook your flight." "This is bullshit," Jimmy muttered, but he backed off, part pride, part fear. He grabbed his bag, shoving past Cheryl without thanks, muttering, "You'll hear from my lawyer." Jasmine calmly sat down. Vanessa from 2 rows back gave her a small thumbs up. The tension broke like a snapped rubber band. David approached again, this time with a bottle of water. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "For all of it." Jasmine looked at him, not angry, not smug, just tired. "Don't apologize to me," she said. "Fix the system that made this normal." He nodded, the words sinking in heavier than he expected. Outside the window, the luggage carts moved. The sun had risen higher now, flooding the tarmac in gold. Jasmine rested her head against the cool plastic of the plane wall and closed her eyes. This wasn't the fight she planned on having today, but it was one she was ready for, and something told her it had only just begun. The doors of Flight 422 had closed with a final hiss, sealing the cabin in artificial air and unspoken tension. Jasmine sat in 14AA, her seatbelt buckled, her hands folded in her lap, calm, still. But her presence vibrated through the cabin like a low hum of electricity. Every passenger could feel it, even if they pretended not to look. The seat next to her 14B remained empty. Jimmy Kimmel had been escorted back to the galley to wait for further instructions. Across the aisle, Vanessa Green lowered her phone slightly and gave Jasmine a nod. It wasn't just support, it was recognition. She sees me, Jasmine thought. Not just the headlines, not the net worth. Me. David Torres returned to the front, whispering with Cheryl and another attendant. He looked rattled, sweating slightly beneath his neatly pressed collar. "Captain says we can't delay much longer," Cheryl hissed. David rubbed his temples. "Then let's fix this." Quietly. Cheryl leaned in. "You want to tell Mr. Kimmel he's not flying today?" David hesitated. "Maybe we offer her something first. Compromise." He approached Jasmine again, crouching beside her seat, his tone gentle but rehearsed. "Ms. Walker, I wanted to apologize again and see if we can make things right. We're prepared to upgrade you to first class, free of charge, champagne premium meal, legroom I don't want." "First class," Jasmine said, voice calm. He blinked. "I understand. But I want the seat I paid for. That I was assigned. That your system tried to take from me without cause." Passengers nearby leaned closer, pretending to fiddle with tray tables or stretch their legs, but listening intently. David lowered his voice. "Look, I get it. But he's a long-time flyer, has influence." "We didn't think that I'd say no," she asked, raising an eyebrow. David didn't answer. "You didn't think I'd make it a problem." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. From the back, Jimmy Kimmel returned, no longer smirking, but fuming. His phone still in his hand, filming now. "This is harassment," he barked. "I'm being denied my seat because she wants to make a point. This is a discrimination lawsuit waiting to happen." Someone scoffed in row 15. "Discrimination," a woman muttered. "Really?" Vanessa Green stood. That simple movement turned heads. She wasn't loud. She didn't wave her phone around. She simply said, "I've been filming this from the beginning. If you remove her, I'll send this footage to every outlet in the country." Jimmy turned toward her. "Ma'am, stay out of this." She folded her arms. "You don't get to ma'am your way out of being wrong." David looked trapped between corporate policy and moral clarity. "Fine," Jimmy said. "If she's so obsessed with this damn seat, put me somewhere else. I don't want to sit next to someone so entitled anyway." Jasmine didn't react. Her face remained composed, eyes forward. As Jimmy walked back to coach, murmurs followed him like a trail of breadcrumbs. The flight attendants resumed their positions. Cheryl passed Jasmine without a word. David gave her a small, respectful nod. Then over the intercom, "Cabin crew prepare for takeoff." As the plane rolled onto the tarmac, Jasmine looked out the window. Her heart wasn't racing. She wasn't angry, just tired. She didn't want to be the story, but stories had a way of finding her. Halfway through the climb, a flight attendant, young, clearly nervous, brought Jasmine a bottled water. "Compliments of the captain," he said. She accepted it, but didn't open it. Vanessa leaned across the aisle. "You did good." "I didn't do anything," Jasmine replied. "I stayed seated." "Exactly," Vanessa said. "And they couldn't handle it." 30 minutes into the flight, David returned. "May I sit?" Jasmine nodded. He took the empty seat beside her 14B. "I've been with this airline for 14 years, he began. "I thought I'd seen everything." She didn't respond. He continued, "This stuff happens, but it's rarely this public. We usually just, push people quietly." "And they let you," Jasmine said. David nodded. "Yeah, because they're afraid." He didn't deny it. But you didn't move, he added. No, Jasmine said, and that scared you. He exhaled, then reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded paper. Our seat assignment system has override privileges. It lets gate agents bump passengers for elite flyers. They're supposed to notify us, but they didn't today. Cheryl asked for it. For him. Jasmine scanned the paper. Time-stamped, manual override, no legitimate justification. David looked embarrassed. I don't want to lose my job. You won't, Jasmine said quietly. Not if you help me fix this. He looked at her. You're not going to sue. Jasmine smiled faintly. I'm not here to punish. I'm here to change things. At cruising altitude, the seatbelt sign dinged off. Jasmine reached for her phone, finally reconnecting to in-flight Wi-Fi. Dozens of messages, missed calls, emails from her assistant lawyer's board members. One text from Zoe. Are you on that plane? Twitter's on fire. Jasmine opened the app. She didn't even have to search her name. The video of her refusing to give up her seat had already hit 750,000 views. Hashtags were trending. She stayed, seated #flying, while /Wingspan scandal. She put the phone face down, turned to the window, and smiled. The plane hadn't even touched down when Jasmine's phone began vibrating like a trapped bee on the tray table. Text after text, missed calls, emails with subject lines in all caps. Zoe was blowing up her screen. Her face appeared on an incoming video call, and Jasmine sighed before answering. You know you just crashed the company's Twitter page, right? Zoe snapped without greeting. I figured. You trended during the flight. People are calling you Rosa Parks 2.0. Jasmine arched a brow, except Rosa wasn't a billionaire in sneakers. That's not the point. This is going nuclear. Press wants statements. Wingspan's stock is down 4% and falling. You made them bleed before we even landed. Jasmine leaned back. I didn't start it, Zoe. Zoe paused. I know. But you just became the face of it. When the plane landed, a uniformed Wingspan employee was waiting at the gate. Not the usual ground crew. This one wore a tailored navy blazer and earpiece, standing next to two men in black suits. David Torres approached tense. They're here for you. Jasmine glanced out the window. At the end of the jet bridge, a familiar face waited. Robert Ellison, CEO of Wingspan Airlines. She didn't flinch. Passengers exited slowly, casting glances her way, some offering small nods of support. Vanessa Green waited nearby. Want me to stay? Jasmine smiled. Please do. Robert Ellison greeted her with a corporate grin, wide, polished, entirely hollow. Ms. Walker, he said, extending a hand. Would you mind stepping into the lounge for a moment? She looked at the hand, then shook it without emotion. I assume this isn't about extra snacks. Vanessa snorted behind her. Ellison smiled thinly. We're hoping to discuss today's incident. Let's. Inside the VIP lounge, away from the public, the masks came off. Look, Ellison began, this has escalated. Rapidly. And we're fully prepared to make it right. Jasmine crossed her arms. What does make it right mean to you? We'll issue a formal apology. Fire the staff involved. Comp you for the experience. Add a donation to a cause of your choosing. Whatever you need. She tilted her head. You think this is about me? Ellison hesitated. Well, Vanessa cut in. What about the man who assumed she didn't belong? What about the override policy that made it possible? What about your culture? Ellison's jaw tightened. We're reviewing internal systems. Jasmine stepped forward. Calm but unflinching. I hold 12% of your company's private shares, she said. You know that. What you may not know is I was considering increasing that stake this quarter. Ellison blinked. I fly commercial to understand what I'm investing in, she continued. What I got today was clarity. Ellison exhaled. Ms. Walker, please understand. I understand perfectly, she interrupted. Your culture values certain faces over others. Your frontline staff reflects your executive mindset. He looked at her now, not as a customer, but as a threat. We can fix this, he said. Jasmine shook her head. Not unless you want to. Vanessa leaned over. You want to see real change. Start with who trains your flight attendants, who writes the override rules, who benefits when no one speaks up. Ellison looked between them. Jasmine pulled a small black card from her pocket. "My terms are simple," she said. "You bring me in, not as a spokesperson, as a partner. You let me restructure Wingspan's equity policy and accountability systems." "You want a seat on the board?" he asked. "I want a seat with power," she replied. There was silence. Then he nodded slowly. "I'll draw up the papers." "One more thing," Jasmine added. "Public apology. On camera. From you. Not a press release." Ellison swallowed hard. "Consider it done." The video went live the next morning. Robert Ellison stood at Wingspan headquarters. No script, no teleprompter. Behind him, Wingspan employees from every department. "I'm here today to apologize," he said into the camera, "not just to Ms. Jasmine Walker, but to every passenger who's ever been made to feel invisible on our aircraft." He paused. "No one should lose their seat because someone else looks more powerful, and no one should have to be powerful to be treated with dignity." The video went viral. Back at home, Jasmine stood at her window watching the city breathe. Zoe was in the kitchen, half laughing, half panicking over emails. "You're booked for Good Morning America. Forbes wants an op-ed. And wait, Oprah's team just DM'd us." Jasmine smiled, then turned back to the skyline. Power hadn't changed her, but it had changed what she could change. 3 days had passed since the video hit 1 million views. By the 5th day, it passed 20 million. The media cycle had gone from shock to saturation. Everyone had something to say. Op-eds debated race privilege, airline policies, corporate culture. Morning shows ran split-screen interviews. But Jasmine, she stayed quiet. Until now. The glass doors of Wingspan's executive building slid open with a hiss as Jasmine walked in, flanked by Zoe and Vanessa. She wore no makeup, no designer bag, no bodyguard entourage, just a navy pantsuit and confidence sharpened by experience. Robert Ellison met her at the elevator. "Morning, Ms. Walker." "Let's not do the dance," she replied. "Where's the board conference room B?" Inside, 10 men and 2 women sat around a glossy mahogany table. Most were white, all in tailored suits. They stood when she entered. Zoe whispered, "Look at them bowing before the woman they tried to delete." Jasmine nodded at the chair left open at the head of the table. She didn't sit. Not yet. "I'm not here for revenge," Jasmine began. "I'm here for repair." She placed a folder on the table. Inside, a 19-page proposal titled The Walker Framework, Cultural Equity and Accountability in Service-Based Systems. This is not about one flight. It's about your operating system, how you reward behavior, how you punish silence, how you define professionalism. A board member raised a hand. "Our HR department already—" "No," Jasmine cut in. "Your HR reacts. I'm offering you a model that prevents." Ellison stayed quiet. "Your override system," she continued, "is set up to reward loyalty, not legality. Your crew trainings are about customer satisfaction, not customer respect. And your silence until this moment." That wasn't professionalism, that was complicity. Another board member shifted uncomfortably. "This would be expensive." "So is public shame," Jasmine replied. Vanessa stepped up. "Your metrics are broken. You incentivize speed upgrades, profit, but not fairness. We propose new performance indicators, dignity scoring bias, interruption training, peer accountability networks." The room fell quiet. Zoe slid copies of the document to each board member. "This isn't a request," Jasmine said. "It's a condition of continued investment." They took a vote that afternoon. Unanimous. The Walker framework was adopted. News broke within the hour. Wingspan announces historic partnership with Jasmine Walker to combat systemic bias. Later that night, Jasmine sat on the rooftop of her apartment building, legs crossed, eyes closed. Vanessa handed her a glass of lemonade. "You just made history." Jasmine shrugged. "I made a model. Same thing these days." They clinked glasses. The next morning, Jasmine took the stage at Tech Forward, one of the largest technology conferences in North America. The crowd of 3,000 stood as she approached the podium. She didn't smile. She spoke with gravity. "My silence used to feel like strategy," she said. "Now I know it was submission." She looked at the rows of faces, investors, founders, executives, media. All it took was one seat, one gate, one refusal, to remind me that power only matters if you use it for more than yourself. A pause. Then, that's why today I'm launching the Washington Equity Initiative. Applause. She continued. This initiative will invest $50 million into startups and businesses led by founders of color. We will fund not just tech, but logistics, aviation health, and transportation, because access is not just about apps. It's about systems. More applause. Standing ovation. Backstage, Zoe whispered, "Oprah's people called again." Jasmine grinned. "Tell her I said hi." Vanessa handed her a printout of a tweet from a young woman named Aria Jasmine. Walker didn't just keep her seat. She made room for the rest of us. Refusing to move # Washington Equity Initiative. Jasmine folded the paper, gently tucked it in her pocket. She wasn't done. Not yet. It had been 6 weeks since Flight 422. The world hadn't changed overnight, but it had shifted slightly steadily, like the slow correction of a crooked picture frame. And now Jasmine was back at the airport. Same gate, same airline, same seat. The sun was low over San Francisco International as she wheeled her small carry-on through Terminal B, passing headlines flickering across mounted TVs. Wingspan unveils new equity training program, Washington, Equity Initiative Funds. 12 startups in first round. Jasmine Walker, the investor who stayed seated. She walked quietly, unrecognized. Just another traveler in line. Exactly how she wanted it. At gate 37, the familiar rhythm pulsed around her, gate agents calling names, wheels dragging, coffee sloshing. But something was different. A new uniform on the crew. Softer tones, more diversity at the counter. She spotted a young black man behind the desk, clearly new, a little nervous, but smiling wide. "Good evening, ma'am," he said warmly. "Boarding soon. Can I help with anything?" She smiled. "Just here for my seat." When boarding began, Jasmine stood with Group 3 just as before. No fast track, no pre-boarding, but this time no judgment. No stares, no whispers. Inside the plane, she walked past first-class business and toward 14A. The seat was waiting for her untouched. She slid into it. Window side. Familiar. Still hers. A small breath escaped her lips, not exhaustion, just peace. Next to her sat a girl no older than 20. Dark skin, natural curls pulled into a puff oversized hoodie with Spelman College and glitter print. She clutched a resume folder in her lap and was quietly whispering affirmations under her breath. "You okay?" Jasmine asked gently. The girl jumped, then nodded. "Yeah, just first flight. Big interview in New York. Where at nonprofit startup. Education reform." She paused. "They won't hire me, though. I'm not fancy enough." Jasmine smiled. "Neither was I, but I showed up anyway." The girl blinked. "You nervous your first time flying?" Jasmine chuckled. "More than nervous." The girl looked at her, curious. "You fly a lot now." Jasmine hesitated. "Yeah, but I still remember this seat." The girl looked down at her folder, then back up. "You got any advice?" Jasmine studied her sharp eyes, uncertain hands, but fire in her chest. "Yeah," she said. "Don't let them measure you by what you wear, or how you talk, or where you're from." The girl nodded slowly. "And when they try to shrink you," Jasmine added, "take up more space." The plane filled. Flight attendants moved down the aisle. One stopped at their row. She was young, South Asian, calm, confident. "Hello, Miss Walker. Welcome back. Water or tea before we depart?" Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "Tea, please." The attendant turned to the girl beside her. "And for you, miss." The girl's eyes widened. "Wait, you're that Jasmine Walker." Jasmine laughed softly. "Guilty." The girl turned red. "Oh my God, I watched your speech in class," our professor cried. "We all did." Jasmine waved it off. "Don't cry on the plane. Bad for the altitude." They both laughed. As the engines whirred to life, the girl squeezed her folder tighter. Jasmine looked at her, saw herself years ago. Same nerves, same hunger. She reached over and touched the girl's hand lightly. "The world's tough," she said. "But you're tougher. Take your seat." As the plane lifted from the runway, Jasmine turned to the window. Clouds rose up to meet them like soft mountains. The city shrank below its noise, fading into silence. Her phone buzzed once. A text from Vanessa. Another girl's in 14A today, just like old times. Jasmine smiled. She didn't post anything, didn't tweet, didn't announce her arrival or document her journey. She just sat, in the same seat where it all began, and watched the sky rise to greet her. Sometimes the most powerful stories don't shout, they sit quietly in a window seat, steady and unbending, while the world scrambles around them. Jasmine Walker didn't storm the gates or carry a sign, she just stayed seated. And in doing so, she reminded us all that dignity isn't loud, it's lasting. Her journey wasn't about a headline or a hashtag. It was about something quieter, older, and more enduring, the right to be seen, to be respected, to belong without having to prove you deserve it first. From the uneasy silence at Gate 37 to the subtle shift in airline policy, every moment was a thread in a larger tapestry, one woven from decades of quiet courage in the Black community. It reminded us that systemic change often begins in the smallest cracks when someone simply refuses to shrink. The lesson here isn't wrapped in drama, it's wrapped in grace. That when you carry your truth with quiet strength, you can disarm injustice without ever raising your voice. Jasmine didn't just claim a seat on a plane, she claimed a place in a world that often overlooks people like her. And by standing her ground with calm clarity, she carved open space for others, especially young women from the Black community who've spent too long feeling like guests in places they helped build. It's a lesson as old as the rocking chairs on our grandmother's porch. You don't need noise to make history, just presence. Like the old street lamp that burns through a storm, a simple act of staying true can light the path through even the darkest corners of power. What Jasmine taught us is that sometimes the loudest justice comes from stillness. So maybe next time we're tempted to judge a person by their shoes, their accent, or where they sit on a plane, we can pause. Because the truth and the future may be riding quietly in row 14, hoodie pulled up, watching, waiting. Ready to move when it matters most. Take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself, what seats have I given up, not because I had to, but because I thought I didn't belong? And if this story touched something in you, if it reminded you of someone you love, or a moment when you stayed silent instead of standing tall, consider sharing it. Sometimes a story isn't finished until it's passed along, especially in the Black community, where wisdom is often carried not by power, but by memory. Let Jasmine's seat remind us all, the most ordinary places can hold the beginnings of something extraordinary.